Imagine this, you're 22. You're an ambitious girl from a wealthy family, with a great education. You've just landed one of the most prestigious internships in the country. Your career is about to take off. You work closely with your boss, a man adored by the entire nation. He's charismatic, smart, always smiling. He is the most powerful man in the country. And then, he starts paying attention to you. Casual flirting, smiles, jokes. One thing leads to another, and suddenly, you are in a secret relationship. At first, it feels like a movie romance. Gifts, compliments. He tells you that you're special, and he even promises to leave his wife and child for you. You trust this secret with a close friend. Naively, you tell her everything, down to the most intimate details. But your friend secretly turns on a tape recorder. She records your conversations, and not for herself. One day, while you're at a shopping mall, you are surrounded by the FBI. They already know everything because your friend handed those tapes over to federal agents. They threaten you with prison unless you confess to the affair with the president, the man you love. You stand there, in the middle of a store, and your entire world literally crumbles. Within days, every single intimate detail of your romance is plastered across front-page news. You are publicly called not pretty enough for the president, fat, a whore, and dozens of other humiliating names. You become a punchline for millions.
Hey, Saddam.
Monica, you never call me anymore!
And a symbol of shame for an entire country. As you've probably guessed, this is the story of Monica Lewinsky, a girl who became the ultimate victim, or more accurately, the only person who carried the entire burden of social accountability for this sex scandal. Her face was everywhere. On screens, in newspapers, and at the center of late-night talk show jokes. Songs were written about her, and plays were staged. She became a meme long before the word meme even existed. Because of the endless, brutal bullying, Monica contemplated ending her life. She went to therapy, trying desperately to start a new life. She quit her job, but no one would hire her. She started designing handbags, but no one would buy them. She never started a family and has no children to this day. In interviews, she openly admits that because of the media hounds who ruthlessly tore her apart, she lost everything she had and everything she could have had in the future. And all of this, simply because she accepted the advances of her boss. A boss who was 27 years older than her. And welcome back to Told by Her. Today, we are looking back at the story of Monica Lewinsky, America's most famous mistress, and at the same time, the ultimate victim of sins, both her own and those of others. But this is not just a sensational story about betrayal and power. It is a story about a friend's trap, and about how one young woman lost absolutely everything, while the man who should have been punished too, because it takes two to tangle in a forbidden romance, lost nothing. He, on the other hand, paid a fine, survived a failed impeachment, and walked away with his power, influence, and reputation intact. Even his wife didn't leave him. Instead, she fully and publicly supported him. While Monica Lewinsky's name became a synonym for shame, Bill Clinton's name remained pristine in history textbooks. So today, I will tell you how it all began, and why this story sounds completely different if we look at it through a modern lens. The summer of 1995, the President of the United States is Bill Clinton, a vibrant, charismatic man who tried hard to emulate his idol, John F. Kennedy. America loved him, pleasant, eloquent, always smiling, the perfect image of a decent family man. By 1997, he would win a second term as president. The economy was stable, and his approval ratings were sky high. But behind the facade, there was a different reality. Political commentators had long joked about Clinton's appetite for affairs. His reputation, even back then, was far from perfect. In 1995, a 22-year-old graduate of Lewis and Clark College, Monica Lewinsky, took her first step toward a big career. She landed an internship at the White House. Later, she was promoted to a permanent position. She was ambitious, well-educated, and the daughter of family acquaintances of the Clintons. In fact, her parents had insisted that Monica move from California to Washington. They felt her relationship at the time was only holding her back. Through mutual connections, they asked the president to help with the internship if only they knew what would happen next. One day, Monica was asked to deliver a folder of documents to the president's office, and that is exactly how it all began. She saw a charismatic, smart, confident man standing before her, and she fell in love. He was nearly 30 years her senior. The Oval Office, shielded from guards and security cameras, became the birthplace of their affair. Their meetings were rare, but they acted like any couple in love, exchanging gifts, writing notes, and using secret nicknames. But there are no real secrets in the White House. People noticed that Monica was visiting the president's office far too often. So, in 1996, to avoid a scandal, she was quietly reassigned to a different job at the Pentagon's press service. On paper, it was a career promotion. In reality, it was heartbreaking exile. The president grew cold and stopped calling. Yet, naive Monica truly believed that once his term ended, he would divorce Hillary and marry her. Monica tried to pull herself together, but she couldn't. She desperately needed someone to confide in. And that was exactly when Linda Tripp entered her life. Linda was a Department of Defense colleague twice Monica's age, and a former White House staffer who became a perfect friend to her. On the outside, Linda was calm and welcoming, but deep down, she harbored a massive resentment toward Bill Clinton. Linda despised his liberal reforms, women's rights, abortion access, and the idea of allowing gay people into the military. Her husband was a military man, and many of her Republican friends had lost their jobs when the Democrats took over. A personal vendetta? More than likely. Monica fully trusted Linda. She told her about the relationship, the letters, and the gifts. Linda listened patiently, but silently hatched a plan of her own. She shared what she heard with her friend, Lucianne Goldberg, a literary agent, who happened to be looking for a juicy, dirty White House story. Lucianne convinced her, record these conversations. And so began one of the most cynical betrayals of the 1990s. Linda Tripp, an adult, cold, experienced woman, started secretly taping every single phone call with Monica Lewinsky.
I can't take it anymore. I know.
The young girl's stories were sincere, naive, and full of trust. She had no idea that she wasn't talking to a friend, but to someone who was turning her private life into a criminal case file. During one of these conversations, Monica happened to mention that after an intimate encounter with the president, her dress had been stained with Clinton's DNA. She was planning to take it to the dry cleaners, but Linda stopped her. "Don't do it. Save it. You never know when you might need it." And just like that, a blue dress remained in Monica's closet, a dress that would soon become the smoking gun in a case that overturned American politics. Meanwhile, another storm was brewing in the courts. Her name was Paula Jones, and she was yet another woman accusing Bill Clinton of sexual harassment. By that time, rumors of this nature had been circulating around the president for years. What his relationship with Hillary was truly like remained behind closed doors. But one thing was clear: Clinton was constantly looking for validation elsewhere. And, as it would later turn out, he had a long string of such affairs. The first woman who dared to speak out loud about it was Paula Jones, a former state employee from Arkansas.
All of the deceit, and I'm sick of all of the lies. He is absolutely lying.
According to her, it all happened on May 8, 1991. She was working as a state employee and was attending an annual conference in Little Rock. There, a local police officer allegedly approached her and said that the governor of Arkansas, Bill Clinton, wanted to see her. When she entered his hotel room, the governor, according to her claims, unzipped his pants, exposed himself, and asked for sex. Paula stayed silent for a long time. She kept this story a secret for years, but in 1994, she decided to speak out. She gave an interview to the American Spectator, and just a few months later, she filed an official lawsuit against Clinton, a sexual harassment lawsuit. She demanded a public apology and $750,000 in damages. She had almost no evidence. So, Jones's lawyers decided to take a different approach. They tried to prove that Clinton systematically had intimate relationships with subordinate state employees. To do this, they began subpoenaing women they suspected were also linked to the president. Among those names was Monica Lewinsky. By that point, the Jones trial had been dragging on for 3 years. Newspapers and TV shows savored every single detail. The court case was turning into a political weapon. Clinton could have settled it quietly by simply paying the compensation, but he refused. "It will look like an admission of guilt," he said, and that very decision would prove fatal for him because at that exact moment, the tapes secretly recorded by Linda Tripp landed right in the hands of Paula Jones's lawyers. Now they had a new victim and a story shockingly similar to the previous one. Monica was subpoenaed, and just like that, step by step, the private affair between two people turned into the scandal of the century. Panic, a pact to lie. Monica loved the president, but everything was falling apart. They met and agreed on a line of defense. Deny everything. Monica was to lie under oath. Later, Clinton would do the exact same thing. And this is where the real Rubicon was crossed. Society could forgive an office affair, even one involving a cheating husband, but not lying under oath, because that is no longer just a sin, it's a federal crime. January 1998. After 3 years of rumors, gossip, and suspicion, the bomb finally exploded. Linda Tripp, learning that Monica had denied the relationship under oath during the Jones hearings, decided to make her ultimate chess move. She handed the recordings of their private, friendly conversations over to independent counsel Kenneth Starr, a man who was already investigating other matters tied to Clinton. Starr wasn't just a prosecutor. He was fanatically dedicated to cleaning up Washington. And when Linda's tapes landed in his hands, he knew. This was it. This was the weapon that could bring down the president. Agents swarmed Monica, threatening her with prison time, psychological warfare, sleepless nights, hours of interrogation. Finally, she broke. After signing an immunity deal, Monica handed over the ultimate piece of evidence, that very blue dress Linda Tripp had told her to save. Clinton's DNA was still on the fabric. The President of the United States was subpoenaed again. This time, he was interrogated by Kenneth Starr himself. The president stood under oath, calm, confident, with a perfectly poised voice, and then he delivered a line that would become one of the most famous quotes of the late 20th century.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
But just days later, Prosecutor Starr presented the court with the ultimate evidence, the audio recordings, and the blue dress. DNA analysis left absolutely no room for doubt. The stains on the dress belonged to the President of the United States. Clinton had lied. Kenneth Starr's report laid out 11 possible grounds for impeachment, falling into 4 main categories: perjury, obstruction of justice, witness tampering, and abuse of power. Yet, even under the crushing weight of this evidence, Clinton refused to back down. He still would not admit to the lie. On December 19, 1998, the House of Representatives voted for impeachment. At that point, Clinton became only the second president in U.S. history to officially face removal from office. However, despite a Republican majority in the Senate, they fell short of the required 2/3 majority. The impeachment failed. Clinton remained in the White House and served out the rest of his second term until January 20, 2001. Formally, he won, but the consequences caught up with him anyway. The court found him in contempt of court, suspended his law license for 5 years, and fined him $90,000. A remarkably small price to pay for a lie under oath that shook the entire world. When talking about this scandal, few people mention the third person in this love triangle. First Lady Hillary Clinton, learning about her husband's years of infidelity, left her shattered and humiliated. Yet, in public, she continued to play the part of the devoted wife, supporting her husband, smiling for the cameras, and standing by his side at official events. For her, divorce was not an option. She had invested too much into this marriage, both as a woman and as a politician. So, Hillary decided to do what no one expected. She stayed, but she turned this tragedy into her own political weapon. She rebranded her image, pulled herself together, and after her husband's presidency ended, she began building her own political empire. She became a U.S. Senator for New York, and later, the Secretary of State in Barack Obama's administration. She wrote books and spoke at universities and conferences. She spoke openly about the affairs, the pain, and how a woman can survive the most public humiliation imaginable. Slowly but surely, she transformed from the president's wife into a towering political figure in her own right. When asked if she regretted staying in the marriage, she answered simply, "I wanted our marriage to last because I loved Bill and I valued the years we had spent together." In her memoirs, Living History, she honestly recounts the raw emotion of that moment. "I could hardly breathe. Gulping for air, I started crying and yelling at him. 'What do you mean? Why did you lie to me?' He just stood there saying, 'I'm sorry. I was just trying to protect you and Chelsea.' I was dumbfounded, heartbroken, and outraged that I'd believed him at all." And yet, Hillary never filed for divorce. "The hardest decisions I have ever made in my life were to stay married to Bill and to run for the Senate," she wrote. "But I knew that no one understood me better, and no one could make me laugh the way Bill did." In 2016, she reached the absolute pinnacle, becoming the Democratic nominee for President of the United States. No former First Lady had ever come this far, Although she lost that election, she had already secured her place in history as a symbol of resilience, ambition, and sheer strength. In October 2025, the couple celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. They had met as students at Yale Law School and married in 1975. Despite all the scandals, the crises, and the years of silent distance, they stayed together. When we got married 50 years ago, we had no idea how our lives would turn out. But one thing I knew for sure: I wanted to go through all the ups, downs, and everything in between with you. Happy anniversary, dear Bill. And perhaps, in that single quote lies the entire essence of her story. But what would you have done in Hillary's shoes? Would you have forgiven him? Would you have stayed in a marriage like that? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Another key figure, rather, the antagonist of this scandal, was Linda Tripp, a woman who viewed herself as a whistleblower, but went down in history as the ultimate traitor. Over the course of a few months, she amassed 22 hours of audio, telephonic confessions, intimate admissions, and conversations built on pure trust. When the truth finally exploded, America went hunting for the guilty. Monica was publicly shamed, Clinton lied, and Linda was universally hated. "I'm so sorry that this happened, and I hate Linda Tripp," Monica openly declared in court back then. Linda's grand plan to cleanse the White House of a predator failed miserably. The president finished his second term, while Linda lost everything. Her actions were highly illegal. Under Maryland law, recording conversations without the consent of both parties is a crime. An investigation was launched against her, though the charges were eventually dropped. But the public had already delivered its own verdict. For Republicans, she became a hero. For the rest of the country, she was a snake, a traitor, who trampled on a young girl's trust. Linda vanished from the public eye. It wasn't until 2018, on the 20th anniversary of the scandal, that she gave an interview to Slow Burn. She stated that she had no regrets about what she did, but admitted she was terrified that the Clintons might have her killed. "I couldn't look Monica in the eye because I knew she would never understand," Linda said. "But if she were my daughter, I would want someone to stop her. It's like ripping off a Band-Aid. It hurts, but it's necessary." What happened to the other figures in this scandal? Paula Jones received her settlement. The president paid several $100,000, but after paying her lawyers, Jones was left with a mere $70,000, a pitifully small sum for having her life dragged through 3 years of trials and dozens of tabloid front pages. But the only person who truly suffered the most in this story was Monica Lewinsky. This is not about excusing infidelity. There is no excuse for that. This is about something else. A societal reaction that was profoundly unjust. All the rage, the mockery, and the condemnation collapsed entirely on her, a 24-year-old girl, and not on the 51-year-old married man. The main perpetrator remained in power. People continued to applaud him and shake his hand. During the trial, absolutely everyone turned on Monica. The media, politicians, and ordinary people. They called her a temptress, a social climber, a clout chaser. They despised her. They humiliated her. They turned her into a symbol of ultimate disgrace. The bullying was so relentless that Monica contemplated suicide. She shut herself away from the world, released a book, mostly written by agents, and gave a few interviews just to survive financially. But every penny she made went straight to her lawyers. Her family was wealthy, but even with an education and connections, Monica could not find a job. Who would want to hire someone for their PR or communications department whose very name had become a synonym for shame? Her life came to a grinding halt at just 24. Yet, years passed, and the world changed. When the #MeToo movement erupted, Monica's name re-emerged in the headlines. She became one of the key voices helping the world rethink the dark reality of power, consent, and accountability.
In 2014, you said the relationship was consensual. In 2018, you said you were just reevaluating how power dynamics impact consent. Now, today, where do you stand?
It's really still, I kind of landed in the place that I landed in 2018,
Okay.
which was this sense of, I'm very clear this was not sexual assault. And therefore there's a level of consensuality that was there. And at the same time, because of the power dynamics and the power differential, I never should have fucking been in that position. And so that's where you just can't even, I think that you can't even understand what you're walking into. And that's where It's the responsibility of the person with more power. And that power can be age. It can be their job. It can be their financial resources. There could be myriad reasons that they have that.
The term cyberbullying didn't even exist back then, but that is exactly what happened to her. She later recalled, "In 1998, I was the most humiliated person on earth and the first victim of the internet. I was shamed and bullied year after year." Monica Lewinsky publicly apologized multiple times, to her country, to the Clintons, and to everyone hurt by her story. But from Bill himself, she never heard a single word of apology. Today, she is completely different. Monica has become a prominent public activist, speaking out against cyberbullying and the public shaming she survived firsthand. In 2020, she executive produced the series Impeachment, American Crime Story, where she finally told her story on her own terms.
It allowed me to survive, but I don't know that I was really truly taking in just how humiliated I was on so many levels every day.
Yes.
And just sitting here talking about it, and it's like it's sort of the visual for me is like one of those big knives, and it's just these cutting me, just cutting off pieces of me,
Right.
of myself. But I couldn't actually even, in order to take the next breath, in order to take the next step, I couldn't actually even process what was happening.
Looking back at this story from the perspective of 2026, it becomes blindingly obvious. The media and society didn't attack the system or the man with all the power. They tore into a young woman. As Monica herself noted, she experienced raw misogyny. While men made cynical jokes, it was women who literally ripped her to shreds. While Monica spent years in therapy, learning to live with public shame and rebuilding herself piece by piece, Bill Clinton quietly retired. However, his name returned to the front pages. This time, it was tied to the files of Jeffrey Epstein, the multimillionaire accused of human trafficking and sex crimes. The world saw hundreds of photos of them vacationing together, and this is where one can truly say, karma is real. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, write a comment, and share it with your friends so more people can hear this story. See you in the next video.